Hello and welcome to
Pop Off, Sis! The show where we talk about life, current events, and, well, ourselves.
I'm your co-host, Lydia.
And I'm your co-host, Margot. Welcome to this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. What is going on today? We have a lovely new guest episode. Thank goodness. We love our guests. It is, just a little caveat out here. It is 9:25 in the morning that we are recording this. So, we are waking up, and I hope that you guys are waking up along with us. So, Lydia, would you do the honors in introducing our guest?
I would. Oh my gosh, I'm like, because she's here. But this, everyone, is Shanae Claudio. She is one of my best friends, literally since 4th grade. So like babies. Like we went to lower school together, middle school together, high school together, and obviously talked all through college. So it's like, hopefully we're lifelong friends at this point. But yeah, hi Shanae, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome. This is a long time coming. We were just saying how I can't believe Shanae hasn't been on yet, but we're so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
So can you just give like a quick, like, who are you? You know, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Shanae Claudio. I'm from Hunt Valley, Maryland. I'm 22 years old, and I recently graduated from Loyola University, Maryland with bachelor's. Thank you, guys. Thanks. Bachelor's in science and biology and psychology, and I'm hopefully gonna become a doctor. Med school, here we come. So we'll see.
That is amazing.
I always joke, Shanae's about to be out here like listening to all my problems. I'm gonna be on her couch, like, listen, what happened this week? Shanae's over here like whole life together. No, that's so awesome. Yeah. Did you actually have like one point in your life that made you want to become or get into medicine, become a doctor, or you just kind of always knew?
I don't know if I had like a defining moment, but I do think that like doctors are social justice workers and they really advocate for their patients and make a really big change in people's lives. So I think that's the best way I can impact people positively. So that's why I want to do it.
Love it. Okay. Also, like, woman in medicine, Black woman in medicine.
Yes, absolutely. We're making change, people.
Yes.
That is definitely on brand with what we're talking about today. But we do have an icebreaker question that we are just bringing to the podcast. So you're the first one to be asked.
Okay.
Just go with me here. Okay. If you could only go down one grocery store aisle, like on your whole grocery store trip or like, I guess, ever in life, which one would it be? Like number, because obviously we all shop different places, but you know,
right.
Like type of food.
I think the produce aisle, only because like they have all the foods that I love, like most of them, or the ice cream aisle, because
I was gonna say produce is kind of cheating because it'd be like spread out over most.
Yeah, I mean it's one aisle, no? But yeah, that or the ice cream aisle, because can't live life without ice cream.
Yeah, I think that's my answer right now, is ice cream aisle. What about you, Margot?
I don't know. That is such a difficult question.
Right?
I feel like I might have to be annoying and say like the aisle where they have like the tofu and the vegan food.
I knew it. I was like, where's the tofu?
In every grocery store it's different. Like sometimes it's with the produce, so like that would be a good 2-in-1. But in my grocery store it's like its own like organic food.
Oh my goodness.
And I am that girl who goes to that aisle and gets like everything off the shelf. So, you know.
Wow. Okay. I mean, y'all are trying to cheat out here with this produce thing, but okay, good answers. So let's go into our rows of the week. I'll start us off. Mine is very basic. Clearly, since we're up, like Margot said, at 9 a.m., it's getting better. But I have been going to sleep so late, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., like just nothing to do, no job to wake up to. So I've been going to sleep very late and waking up very late, like 2, 3 p.m. at times. Very embarrassing. So I've been trying to do better about going to bed by like midnight or by like 1 a.m. So I'm proud of that. Being up right now is a big accomplishment. So that's my rose. How about you, Margot?
Honestly, Lydia, it's a big accomplishment for anyone to get up at this hour during quarantine, I feel like. Because everyone's like taking their leeway with work, like doing a 10 to 6, not a 9 to 5. So literally props. My rose is that I started work this week. Well, my internship. Well, I had orientation last week, but it really started this week. And it is being on Zoom for like 6 hours a day, so it's pretty exhausting. The Zoom fatigue is real, guys. That's what staring at a screen 6 hours does stuff to your brain. But I am glad to be working with kids, teaching kids Shakespeare. Most of them know more than me, and I just have to sit there and pretend that I'm some sort of adult and have like a structure to my day. It's nice. Although I do miss my freedom a little bit. I just haven't had to work in like 5 weeks because school ended and I did nothing during that whole time. So I'm glad to have a little structure.
Oh, good.
What about you, Shanae?
So I just got back from the beach. So that was like my rose of the week, not my thorn. Yeah, it was a really good trip. It was so good to see everyone, but it's kind of sad because like, what are we gonna see each other again, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely my rose. It made me so happy.
I love the beach. What beach was it?
Dewey Beach.
I love Dewey.
Yeah, it was so fun. Oh my god.
Was the weather good?
So good. It like wasn't that hot. It was like mid to like high 70s. So warm, but like also like a nice breeze. It's the best.
Well, I'm glad you're back home safe, Shanae. And again, we're just so happy to have you here for this conversation.
So today, guys, we're going to be kind of continuing with what we've been talking about in our last 2 episodes. We're going to continue talking about Black Lives Matter and the movement and what's been going on right now and how we can do our parts to help and how we can continue to inform ourselves and honestly get another opinion from another Black woman of what it's like to live in this country and what her thoughts are, Shanae's thoughts are on what's been happening. And I'm really excited to start. So I guess starting off with the first question is, you know, how are you doing, Shanae? How are you feeling with everything going on right
now? I think for like lack of a better word, I'm just feeling really sensitive. You know, just like really sad and angry and kind of disappointed in some of people's like reaction to the movement and how, you know, some people are just posting to post or, you know, discrediting other people's experience because you don't see that being done in other situations of, you know, oppression or injustice. So overall, just like very sensitive, I think.
Would you say that your reactions to things or like even with your own friends, like what's kind of your reaction with everything? Like, are you one to get kind of angry right away? Do you kind of do a lot of self-reflection? Like, what's your process for things?
So I think I probably start by you know, you hear what the person has to say and you kind of think, okay, like, if it's one of my friends, I try and think if it's something that's offending me, that they're my friend and they might not be meaning to offend me. Like, it could just completely, I could hear it, not how they intended it to come off. So I guess, yeah, self-reflection. And then, yeah, I get angry sometimes, and sometimes I get really, like, really heartbroken and really sad. And other times I get very worried. And I don't know, like, I just feel like the world just feels like it's like blowing up, but also these are struggles that have been happening for years. And I think we were just either numb to it, or we just thought that's what life is. And I think what's really heartbreaking is, like, that's not what life is, and that's not what it's supposed to be. But you know, when you're growing up in it and when you're living it, you don't know the difference. And when you see the difference, when you see, like, oh, like, some people don't get nervous when they see the police, and some people, you know, will never feel uncomfortable in a room because their skin is darker than everyone else's, or anything like that. It's just, I don't know, it just makes you sad and sensitive. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting too, that you were saying how, like, we might have been numb to it all this time, because I found myself thinking about that the other day, like, all these protests, and you know, everything's coming to light now, but it's like, this is like an everyday thing. We're all complicit in it, you know, like, it's all of us, but it's like, it makes you think now, it's like nothing's really, it's not like anything different was happening with George Floyd's death than, you know, years past. So it's like, right, interesting that you know, I know our attention spans are very short nowadays, and it takes something happening to, you know, reignite that anger and that passion. But yeah, maybe that's a good way to think about it, is that we've been numb to it all this time. Mm-hmm. And another thing that I was just thinking of when you said about how we respond to other movements and how other movements are treated. How do you feel about that? Because, you know, you think about, like, the March for Our Lives or the Women's March, those kind of things that get a lot of attention, just like Black Lives Matter, but for sure more of like a positive light, more of the majority is more thinking about it, you know, in a positive way. And I get this is race, so there's a lot more controversy, I guess. But yeah, how does that make you feel in terms of, like, how this movement has been treated differently? Most recently, I know President Trump has come, I just don't say his name a lot, so stop me for a second. But he's coming under fire right now for basically referring to Black Lives Matter as, like, not something he could get behind. Basically saying that it's not like he basically insinuated that it's not a good movement. And it was because there was some video of protesters that were yelling something about frying up policemen like bacon and pigs in a blanket or something like that, that just wasn't good and definitely not part of the movement. But because of that, he said the whole thing is, like, not a message he can get behind.
All Black lives do matter. He agrees with that sentiment. But what he doesn't agree with is an organization that chants pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, about our police officers, our valiant heroes who are out on the street protecting us each and every day.
So yeah, what do you think about all this going on with him in particular?
It's just, honestly, this is, like, what makes me mad, because this is a movement for human rights, and this is a movement that needs white people to, like, get any sort of change. We need white people in power, we need everyone to come together. But for some reason, there's something holding people back, and I think that speaks to the issue that the movement is trying to address. Because, like, March for Our Lives, we're like, oh, yep, let's all go. Let's all be there and support and, like, try and make change. For Pride, like, everyone goes, and, like, I maybe I'm just lucky. I don't have people in my life that are anti the LGBTQ plus community. But I don't know if it really gets the backlash or the lack of support from the government, from companies in power, that Black Lives Matter has gotten, and I just don't understand why. You know, I understand race is like controversial, but I also don't understand why it is, because that's like, I don't mean to like sound uneducated, but I don't think my race, it does speak to me as a human being, but like, it's not like, my skin color isn't like, this is a color, it's not a threat, you know what I mean? So I don't like this like backlash and like people like not wanting to post because it's like controversial, or you know, they don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. Like, this is people are dying, people have been dying, people can't, you know, move their lives in like a positive way. Like, people can't grow, people can't, like, families have been stuck in certain situations for years, and like, that's not for what, you know, like, can you imagine if everyone had like chances to, you know, go to college, go to grad school, make something of themselves, contribute to our country, we would actually be a world superpower. I think right now, America, like, we think like, oh, we're so good, like, we've done all these things, but I think it's a lot of it is kind of in our head, because we could be so much further along and doing so many other things if more people had opportunities. Or maybe it's not even about the opportunities, but it's about how hard some people have to fight, like the extra effort they have to put in, and sometimes you just don't have the resources or really the strength to do it. And sorry, I'm like kind of going on a tangent, but I just, yeah, the lack of support and like the reluctance to support the movement, I think it just makes me mad.
I think that if people are uncomfortable and feel like this is a controversial topic, then they need to like dive more into it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need to look within themselves and be like, what is it about this that is making me uncomfortable or making me think this is controversial? Because it's a matter of life and death. And, you know, we're talking about like the March for Our Lives and the Women's March, and like why those seem to be more supported than this movement. And it's like, well, I think people saw it as like one thing they could understand. It's like, oh, they're marching for gun control, so, you know, you change one law, you make it harder to get guns. Oh, they're marching for women, you know, like listening to survivors, making more equal pay, blah blah. But when it comes to like race in this country, it is a systemic problem, and it's like, it starts at the top and it works all the way down. And it's like, to fix this, we have to look into our prison systems, we have to look into our politicians, we have to look into like every single policy that this country was founded on, and that scares the shit out of people. They don't know how to deal with it. And it's like, well, it's time. Like, you've been turning a blind eye, saying that you're not racist because you have one black friend, or because you've like never said the N-word or something like that. You're like, oh, I'm not racist. It's like, no, because we grew up in a systemically racist country, everybody has implicit bias and implicit racism in them, like especially white people. Okay, that was my tangent.
That was everything.
And Shanae, like, you could think like, this is what we need. Like, we need more in the world. Like, she's willing to talk about it episodes on end, you know, like she's having the conversation, and that's just the starting point. But it's like, we can't even get people to this point.
That's what I'm saying. And like, for there to be real change, like, it needs to start at home. It needs to then go to the classroom. It needs to go to like every single like sector, like everywhere. And so, yeah, it starts with things like this for sure.
Yeah. And a couple things. One, Margot, that is such a good point, that this movement involves everything. Whereas, like you're saying, the other movements are like one specific thing, but it's like all about intersectionality. At the end of the day, you know, women aren't just white. So it's like, we're all, you know, like, women are women. So it's like, you can't fight for just white women, and you can't fight for just Hispanic women, and you can't fight for just Asian women, like Black women are included in that. So you got to be for everybody. Gun rights aren't just for the white kids in the classroom or on campus, so it's like, but we don't look at it like that. We look at it as like you said, laws and for women. So I think that's such a good point. This one seems so much more nuanced. Black Lives Matter seems so much more intricate that it scares people, and I think that's very interesting. And Shanae, when you were talking about how these are human rights and it's something that is so basic, it's like even when you were talking about opportunities, we as Black people, I think generally it's like not even about giving us more opportunities like extra to get ahead. It's like let us start from the same place as everyone else, and we're working twice as hard with half the resources, whereas the privileged people are getting more of an easy way out, and they already have the most advantages. So it's like a double-edged sword, and it's just a lose-lose situation for Black people. And I just don't understand. It's so simple at the end of the day. Like, I don't understand. I guess the fact, like, all these conversations we're having is necessary and we need to, but it's like, we have so much work to do for such a basic thing. It's crazy. Like, you guys were talking about this before, like that's where the issue is. It's like, why is this so hard to even just get around? Like, to even get to talking about it is mind-blowing.
Why is it taboo? Like, why is it controversial? Like, it's I don't know, it shouldn't be. It's like a basic thing. It's human rights.
Yeah. And Shanae, you kind of, I think, said this before, but like, if there's anything you could pinpoint, or like one of your top 5, like things that makes you the most angry or the most frustrated about how you're seeing people react, not necessarily people but just in general, what you're seeing from the media, is there anything that like has particularly bothered you lately?
I think also just like really trying to put the movement in a box of just being like angry, like Black people are just being riots and people are just going crazy and like looting everything. Like, no, they're not. And there's also like media outlets that are saying like, no, like it's not just angry Black people. There's angry white people there too. Like we're all angry and fighting for this cause because these issues really shouldn't exist, because again, like, skin color should not be a threat. Our system shouldn't be built to the advantage of some people and the disadvantage of others. But I just think like, like the coverage that's not depicting the true picture of what the protests are, or anything in the media that kind of is like saying, well, they're violent, or they're this, they're that, like anything that kind of is just like discrediting people's experiences and why they're fighting for change.
I think something that I've seen that is just like almost unbelievable is the amount of police brutality that is happening at these protests. It's like almost ironic in like the worst way, where it's like they're fighting against police brutality, and then the police is being, is brutalizing them.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of that you're not seeing on the mass media, but you have to see through social media, because people don't want to put it on blast that like, yeah, the police are being really horrible right now and using this as a way to get out their violence and continue their oppression. Mm-hmm. Even when people are just trying to be there peacefully and speak for what is right.
Right.
What has been your experience, if anything, like as a Black woman, as, someone that comes from a family of immigrants, that kind of thing, like how has that been growing up?
Well, yeah, so I'm first generation American. My mom immigrated over here from Kenya, and then some of my other family members did too. And so I think in that way, I've kind of like straddled like being like a Black American and also being a Black, or, a Kenyan, being African. Like there's two different cultures, and I definitely see both daily. Like, Kenya is home, and that's what it's like in my house, but then when I go out there, it's like I'm seen as a Black woman, so like it's Black culture. And I love that about myself. I love both, and I'm privileged, I think, to be able to experience both. But also my experience as a Black woman, I feel that I'm constantly under a lot of pressure just to be perfect. Like, and I think a lot of women can feel that, there's a pressure to be perfect. Like, you want to look a certain way, you want to be cute, you don't want to be too, like, aggressive or anything. But I think as a Black woman, you're under, like, a little bit more of a harsher microscope. And so I feel like my losses are a lot more detrimental to me, and my wins are almost non-significant, because it's like, yeah, you're supposed to have good grades, you're supposed to be well-spoken, you're supposed to handle yourself in a certain way, you're supposed to never get angry, because then if you get angry, you're that mad Black girl, and then that is just unacceptable, right? To show any sort of negative emotion. So yeah, I feel like I've been under a lot of pressure, and even in the classroom, like, if I'm saying something, I have to make sure I'm saying it in the most professional way. I'm saying a correct point, and not only is my point correct, it's something that hasn't been brought up, it's something that, I'm adding value to that conversation. It's not like I'm echoing something someone else has already said, if that makes sense. Because you already feel like you're not heard as a Black woman, so you have to make sure, or this is my experience, I shouldn't generalize, but I feel like I'm already not being heard, so I have to make sure, like, what I'm saying is something new, something impactful, and something that's correct above all, because I don't want to not be seen. And I think that's something that you struggle with. And yeah, I also think growing up and like I've gone to all predominantly white schools. I live in a predominantly white town. And I think that also kind of adds to the feeling of being under pressure, and like people kind of like waiting for you to mess up, as bad as it sounds. But yeah, that's kind of been my experiences in some cases.
I'm just like, wow, because like what you said about just not wanting to mess up, it's like not giving anyone any reason to have something negative to say or doubtful. Like, wow. So you've been very strategic with the things you say, and you really think about your actions.
Yeah, I think I've been very careful in, like in any sort of like professional setting, like in my internships, in my schooling, like I think you just have to be extra careful, like even with your appearance. Like I would have never in a million years thought that I would have like my natural hair going into an internship. Like never in a million years. Like that's just not professional. Like they always tell you, like, you are not going to wear your fro into the office. Absolutely not. Like your hair is too big. It's not professional. It needs to be tame. So I thought I would always have like straight, a blowout, or maybe get a weave. Definitely not braids. But this year specifically, I, had my natural hair, but again, I didn't wear it out. I didn't feel like I was allowed to. Like I felt like I had to slick it into a low bun, just to be presentable, when that's not like what, like that's my hair, like. And I think that's also just a way of like making Black women feel small, because your curls are beautiful and you should love your curls. And I feel like when I was growing up, I was taught to not like my curls. And when I was at McDonald's, like I never had my hair curly. Like I don't think anyone there has seen me with my natural curls. I got my hair straightened every 2 weeks diligently. And I don't know if it's because I didn't want other people to feel uncomfortable, or if I didn't want to feel like people were looking at me, or like I didn't want people like patting my hair and like commenting on it. But that was just like my experience, you know, appearance wise as a Black woman. I think you just have to think about different things in different spaces. And I think all women have to, which is also something, you know, that I don't think men really experience. But I think for Black women, it goes a little further than just like the length of your skirt. I think, yeah, it goes into your hair, and I don't know, I don't think it's fair that, you know, your curls are too big or your hair is too much for the office. I don't think that really makes a lot of sense to me, but that's the life I have lived, and it might have to continue living, who knows. But yeah.
Hair itself is like it's its own topic. Like you even putting it in a low bun, it's like you're trying to hide it almost, you know? It's like natural but as low profile as you can make it. Like that's a problem. Like that's a problem. Well, I'm glad you're wearing it natural right now, even if it isn't a bun. Let's see it. Give us a well, yeah, thank you for sharing that too. Like, it's very interesting to hear that. Do you have any, well, actually, I'm curious, Margot, too, really quickly, like, is that something, like, I know I'm sure you've heard all the time, like, Black women talking about their hair and, like, that whole conversation. Like, right. What do you think about that?
I mean, all I know is that, like, a lot of white people have, like, a fascination with touching Black hair, and that's not something I ever really understood. And then it's like when you learn more about the history, it's like, oh, well, white people used to capture Africans and bring them to Europe or bring them to America and put on like zoos where white people would just like stare at this thing that they couldn't understand. And I feel like that has trickled down into this like fascination that white people have of like, oh, this hair is other. It's not like mine. So I must touch it and I must see what it is, because what is this? And I don't know. I just see it like going back there. Obviously, it's not the same to the same extent, but that's where all of this stuff, like, it's just carried out through history. But yeah, I don't know a lot. I mean, I do know about like a lot of Black girls feel a pressure to have straight hair. This is something that I've also heard a lot about with Black girls in or like in sororities that aren't the traditionally Black sororities, of like feeling a need to like straighten their hair and like to give this appearance of having like white features, even though they're Black women. And it's definitely something, you know, I've never seen a teacher call out a student for having their hair like that, but I definitely know that it's something that happens, and that a lot of Black women are made to feel not comfortable wearing their natural hair because people have this like stereotype about it, which doesn't make any sense, because like you guys said, it's hair. It's like that's the way your hair grows, and it's beautiful, you know? And like, I don't know, this is a friggin' mess. So like, why does it matter? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I made any sense just then, but yeah.
Yeah, and I know, like, I think it's India Ari. Let me double check really quick. Let me make sure. Yes, India Ari, a song called I Am Not My Hair that's really interesting, and it's good, and it just kind of talks about like your identity with your hair, and she's a Black woman artist. So yeah, and there's also a good I guess it's like a documentary style movie, and it's called Good Hair, and Chris Rock narrates it, and he basically made it as a tribute to his daughter, so they can learn like there's no such thing as good hair. Your hair is beautiful, and I just thought that was really nice. If you guys ever look into that, it's just an interesting view of the history of hair in terms of like extensions and where we get our fake hair from, that kind of thing. So that's really interesting. But I know we don't have a lot of time. But my last question for you, Shanae, is that I've actually noticed these past couple weeks going out like to the grocery store, like running errands, that I personally like feel there's something changing in the air, like in terms of interacting with white people, with Black people. Like something feels different, in some ways good, but in some ways bad. Like I feel like there's this heightened sense of everyone's kind of on high alert right now, and no one, truly, I don't think there is a rock big enough that you could be hiding under to not know what's going on. So obviously everyone's aware of what's happening right now. So I feel like I can sense that people are just kind of on edge in a different way that is separate from the pandemic of coronavirus. So like, what do you kind of see going forward? Like, what do you hope that's going to change, or what would you like to see soon that happens?
Yeah, I think, like, I hope for the future, because obviously this is not gonna happen. I don't think huge change, like, within the system is gonna happen anytime soon. Like, that's gonna take time. Like Margot said, like, there's so many different areas that need to be tweaked and corrected. So I hope that I see change in people's hearts. It's okay. It's okay. I hope I see change in people's hearts through like education and willingness to learn about the struggles that Black people face every day. I hope to see change in classrooms and like, even the books that little kids read. Like, there needs to be like more Black faces, more in a positive light, I should also add, and I just hope that, people can start living like life through seeing people as humans and like being more empathetic and showing people love versus, being fearful of someone as like that being your first reaction when you see someone, if that makes any sense. And just like less hate. But yeah, that's my hope for the future. We'll see how it goes. I guess you can only worry about yourself and the people that you can touch. But yeah.
Like that. Less hate, more love. Okay, well, we are almost done. Our next segment that we do, that we haven't done in a while, so it can be a little rusty, is our Savage Seconds. I'm a savage. But we are ready to go, so let's go in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, guys, I hate to change the subject, but my industry just is falling apart. Broadway is closed until January, and I have no idea what I'm gonna do when I graduate. If my industry is gonna exist, how I'm gonna make money, because everyone and their mother is getting laid off right now, so that's it.
Okay, I told you I'm trying to get this whole sleep thing together, but I'm also trying to get this whole active thing together. I have no willpower. I don't work out. I just need a bike so I can get outside and ride my damn bike around the neighborhood, because I'm trying to be active, but everybody on planet Earth has bought a bike during this quarantine. Walmart, I've gone to Target, nothing. Nobody give me a damn bike under $600. Ah!
I can't do it.
Guys, we are jumping back in 3, 2, 1, go.
So I don't know if you guys have been spending too much time with your family, but mine is literally roasting me every second. I cannot get a minute alone in my own home. I just want to relax, and everyone is in my business 24/7. I can't deal with it anymore. I need to move out. Don't have money to. What are we going to do?
That was so good.
Okay.
own home. Ain't that a shame?
It's just the worst.
Okay, time for our quotes of the day. Leave us with little gems this morning. Mine is unknown because when do I ever know who's saying a quote? But mine says, "Don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try." And that's very appropriate with this movement. Let me just say, especially to my white friends, like, don't be afraid to not say nothing. I messed that up. Don't be afraid not to speak. No, don't be afraid. I can't
be afraid to be wrong when you speak.
Thank you. Would you like to be the new co-host of Pop Up? Yes, don't be afraid to get something wrong or to offend someone. Be afraid not to say anything at all. Exactly.
I love that. My quote is shifting gears back a little bit to my Savage Seconds. It's by, I'm going to butcher this name. Itzhak Perlman. He's a famous violinist. And he said, sometimes it's the artist's task to find out how much music you can still make with what you have left. These are new times. Artists are struggling, but we can still make music, guys. We can do it.
Okay, and mine is by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Great art. I was gonna say great artist, but great author. And it says, "For what it's worth, it's never too late to be whoever you want to be. I hope you live a life you're proud of, and if you're not, I hope you have the strength to start over."
Love that.
That's awesome.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you, Shanae, so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's great.
You gotta come back. You are great.
Please,
Yes.
anytime. Just let me know.
We're always looking for guests. Thank you so much for joining us. It was so much fun.
I had a great time. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, we will see you in a couple weeks, everyone.
Bye.
And that is our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at popoffsis.podcast and our personal accounts at Lydia__Parker
and at mtruve. Be sure to check out all of our episodes at popoffsis.wixsite.com/website. Thanks for listening.
and we'll see you next time.